Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I'm your host and keeper, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight I have an excellent panel, starting with Prospero.
Hello.
SkepTock.
Hi, everybody.
Serenity Star 13.
Hello.
And DrFunctional.
Hoi hoi.
It's good to be here. It's actually nice. I left a little bit early to get home, so I didn't have to rush. I don't know about you. It stresses me out driving down the road when I'm keeping an eye out for the fuzz.
Yes.
It's like it's. I mean, I like driving in a brisk manner,
Yeah. So do
but I don't particularly like looking over my shoulder constantly, thinking about what's going to happen. How much I don't want to go to traffic school.
good old days of radar detectors. Damn. They were never legal in Virginia. Of course, it didn't stop all the kids in college who weren't from Virginia from having them.
Well, they had sneaky ones where it was just a light that would show up on your dash. You know, you could hide those things pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, a friend of my dad's had built a radar. He's an engineer. Had built a radar detector into his Jaguar XKE, and so it was not visible anywhere. You could not find this thing. You know, so he was flying through Virginia, you know, and slowing down in all the right places. And they finally just pulled him over and said, "We know you have one, okay, and you're not allowed to use it. We're going to write you a ticket for it, and you've got to stop using it. Otherwise, we're going to tear your car apart until we find, you know, that thing and tear it out." That's a true story. Absolutely true story.
Well, they came up with a radar detector at one point. There was something about the super heterodyne nonsense in the detector that gave off enough noise that it was
a signature RF
that they were able to pick it up. And of course, that started the Cold War of technology. It's like, oh, fine, I'll shield that, and then you'll not find it. Oh, well, screw you. We're going to use LiDAR now. You can suck it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and now there's a little app called WEDS that'll tell you where the fuzz are. So
Basically crowdsourcing.
I had that, and I used that, and I tell them where the cops are.
I've been using Waze for years. That's interesting. I can't believe you guys know about Waze.
We tried to use it on the trip to New Orleans, and if that thing gets in between signal receivers, it loses its shit on the interstate. It was flipping in one direction, then another direction, then another direction, then another. It was awful. It made Kreese so angry he deleted it from his phone.
I'll just be the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, does Kree have an Android phone? That's weird because my iPhone, because I have a dead zone I have to go through to get in parts of Kentucky that's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't do that.
It just could not determine why. I mean, we were in Alabama, and it kept trying to...
okay. Yeah.
It kept trying to make us... It indicate that we were going north when we were going south, and it was... And it had done it in North Carolina in a really peculiar spot to do it. It was getting thoroughly confused, I think, by the multiple number of cell towers there were.
Probably.
Because we were between Charlotte, and it was after we left Charlotte, on our way toward Greenville, Spartanburg. And I think there were just too many signals or something. And I did not take it off my phone. So what I'll do is I'll just pick it up. If I see a traffic jam, like frequently we'll check 95 by crossing over it before we get on it. And if there's a jam, I'll take a look and go, US one day.
Well, it's integrated into Google Maps now. Has been for about a year or so. So for the small price of letting Google know everywhere you go, you can get free notifications that there are cops up ahead.
Yeah.
Bonus.
I can't stand Google's traffic advisories. They suck compared to Waze.
Yeah, they're terrible. And plus the voices with Waze are a lot better.
The voices in all of them, though, absolutely reek. We had a Garmin that we were using on a trip to New England, and we decided to get off the... very wisely, we got off the turnpike and moved over to the Garden State Parkway because there was already like a 2-hour backup on the GW Bridge on a weekday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And so, fuck it.
You're amazed at that?
We drove through Newark instead. That was fun.
Yeah.
But got on the and it kept trying to route us back to the turnpike. And I finally told Cree after the third exit, I said, if you don't turn that motherfucking thing off, I'm winging it off the Tappan Zee Bridge. It's just going out the window.
You would have had to go way up far north, though, past Nyack into Haverstraw to get to the Tappan Zee.
We were on our way to the Tappan Zee Bridge.
So you going up the Hudson? Doing the Hudson tour? Or?
No. What we did is we crossed through Newark and got on the Garden State Parkway.
I understand. I know what you did.
So we were.
Were you headed for like Connecticut or something?
Yeah. We were going to. We were going to New England.
Right.
Yeah, and it was the never again are we taking I-95 trip.
This might be a new record for us talking about navigation.
Yeah, it was also well, we were talking about maps. Drink, everyone.
into this show. Yes, drink. Right. Everybody drink. I am drinking hot tea because I woke up at 6 a.m. So
we're cartographically attracted.
We are.
Yeah.
There's
people.
A bunch of
not to be confused
a bunch of amateur cartographers.
We're caps, not maps.
So how are you doing, Functional?
I'm okay.
You doing good?
Sure.
Okay, that's
Why
good.
Singling
Sorry, why am I singling you out? Because I haven't heard from you yet.
It's a matter for you, huh?
Hey, well, all right, Serenity, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You guys anybody need to unburden themselves before we jump into the schedule?
Cowboy Bebop is excellent.
It is?
I haven't seen the original anime, so as a standalone show, excellent.
Well,
That's
I would
good.
definitely watch that first, then go back and watch the original. It might be
plan.
really interesting for you. Yeah, you should definitely do that.
Yeah.
That gives me an interesting perspective that's dissimilar from my friends and you guys who have seen the original, who haven't seen the new one yet. Like, it'll give me that reverse perspective to say, okay, well, you're right here, but maybe you're a little biased here, maybe not.
Oh no, I know I'm biased. I know I am. I will favor the original over the live action, and I am completely aware of that, which is the reason why I'm not.
Well, I mean,
watch live action.
Everybody's got the list of arts to consume, and that's been like at the top 3 of my list for the longest time. I just haven't gotten around to it because it's quite a bit of a time investment. It's 4 seasons.
Now, I do have to say this, and down that same path, as someone who has both read the Wheel of Time books and has watched the first 3 episodes of the new show, I think it's actually really good. I didn't go in expecting it to be a page-to-screen perfect translation.
Mm-hmm.
I hate people who do that.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to happen.
It will never happen with anything.
But everything considered, like, there were some people, because I read some of the reviews because I was curious to see, because I like to try to see what people think, and some people were like, there is stupid SJW stuff, and it's like, okay, so the cast is a little multiracial, but they can all act, so I'm going to let that go. For the most part,
there are quite a few races though in the
I know that was my thing.
I don't have a problem with that. That's
Oh, it's like, well, there's
I've read all those zillions of books too.
I know that you're the only other one I knew who did.
On your recommendation, by
but like Sanguine's issue was the blacksmith dude wasn't big enough. He actually looks decently sized in the show.
Are you talking about Perrin?
Yeah. He actually looks decently sized in the show. So once again don't have a problem with him. There is a scene where a bunch of women, if you know the world, there's a thing called Trollkin, they're monsters. There's a scene where a group of women take out a Trollkin and they're older, but it actually works logistically because they're using like pikes and pitchforks, and there's like 12 of them surrounding one of them. So it actually makes sense.
Even 100 bee stings will kill you.
They didn't destroy it with tweets.
Yeah. But like, there's one other thing that I love is like, I hate it when a male character will subdue a female character and the female character will somehow get out of it. In this one, it didn't do that. It's a pairing that comes later on in the books who actually end up being love interests. But he just goes dunk and just knocks her out, and I was like, right on. We didn't roll
not
over
being
the
afraid
bullshit.
to
But it's actually really good. It's once again the only things people have a problem with that I've seen are the people who are wanted it to be a line for line, page for page translation.
Did they get Moraine right?
She feels right to me, but we're not going to see how right she is until later on in the series. Because right now it's only like the first, like, I want to say 3 to 5 chapters. So
so they're not even out of town yet.
Well, they're out of town. They've already gone out of. I'm trying not to give spoilers.
Yeah.
They're out of the.
I'm trying to speak in code.
They've already run into the one group.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Who wear white.
Right.
What's it playing on? Prime?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just the first 3 episodes, and then the next 3 come out next Friday.
Because I tried to get into Foundations, which I loved the books. He's one of my favorite authors, but I couldn't get into the show.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah.
Foundation was Asimov.
Asimov.
Yeah, Asimov.
Found it. You're right. What am I thinking of? God, I'm so fucking old. Never mind.
Well, he was another great author too. It's just these classics kind of blend together.
Well, let me acknowledge the chat here briefly. Hello, Elowin, Costin, Mr. Shivels. I don't know. Do I know Mr. Shivels? Well, welcome.
Do you want to know Mr. Shivels?
Jenna. Let's see who else we have here. Green Badger Outdoors. Raymond Lewis. Yeah, good. We've got people watching. Excellent.
And Green Badger.
And Addie. Hello, Addie. All right, let us go ahead and begin, if that's okay. You guys can talk without fear of spoilers after the show, if you guys can stick around. Okay. So, let's dissolve this.
Speaking of anime.
So this guy, who,
and a wild Jack appears,
is apparently the new edgelord of the house.
I just fucking love this.
So this guy, he got censured by the house for putting an anime, which had AOC and it was a meme, and it had AOC and Biden in it. Now I watched this thing, and it's essentially the opening credits to Attack on Titan. Now I don't watch anime, so I don't know for sure, but it looked like Attack on Titan to me, and it was super low res. I mean, just shitty. It was just like faces clumsily sort of stitched onto faces of people, and it had all the music. I don't want to play it because
I thought it was so bad.
It is utter crap. But
it makes you groan.
After he got censured, he went ahead and just posted it again.
Yeah,
boomer memes.
Now, what does being censured mean in regards to the house?
It goes on your permanent record.
He was kicked off all his committees.
Yeah.
You can be. It's not automatic that you're kicked off your committees, but it is customary to be stripped of your committee assignments. But the big thing about it is it just calls all this real negative attention to you, and people who get censured tend to get primaried.
So like a public slap on the wrist, but they can also act vindictive.
Because they had to spin it that he was basically advocating for the slaughter of AOC, which that was not,
Yeah, it's a cartoon.
They missed the fucking joke completely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's he might as well have used like the original Godzilla and photoshopped himself, just stomping on it was just so this was such a juvenile response from a bunch of thin-skinned.
It wasn't even good enough to be camp.
No,
it was pretty terrible, but there are versions of it on YouTube, but they're even more shitty low res than the original one. If you want to see it, I put the instructions. It's on gettr.com, Getter, and just search for Gozer Life, and you'll find it. And so I encourage you to go check it out if you have no standards.
Well,
it's pretty terrible. But
guys, this is worse than being a representative and telling people to mob and otherwise,
Yes, this is worse than that, and it's worse than sleeping with a Chinese spy. Just keep that in mind. It's worse than that. This is the same guy who actually very carefully put out a series of tweets in the proper order so that they actually spelled out something. I mean, he's a boomer troll.
Bless his heart.
Let's go.
It's great because the response is better than the meme.
It was one of those things. Like I can't remember her name. I know she's a Republican from Colorado.
Bobert.
Yeah, Bobert.
I just like saying Bobert.
I like her,
Yep.
just getting up there and I think she's done it twice so far, and just ripping into people, going, "So it's okay for this to happen. It's okay for this to happen. It's okay for this to happen."
Yeah.
But he puts a meme out, and you all lose your shit. Fuck you.
Yep.
Basically, is what she said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because she was like, yeah, but it's perfectly fine for a guy to sit on the intelligence committee who was sleeping with a Chinese spy. Yeah.
Sleeping with Fen.
Yeah. Oh, she called out Maxine Waters, not by name.
Jihad Squad.
Yeah, she called out the Jihad Squad, and she did not call Ilhan Omar a brother fucker, but she came really close.
She did. It was great.
Not the brother Marion one, but the other,
the other one.
And it was just absolutely. I mean, she's an idiot, but you have to score her points for just having the moxie to get up there and publicly mock them like that.
Yeah,
You
she
need
doesn't
to
have
use
a
They
much
were
of a
prepared
filter.
statements, and they were intelligently prepared and vicious, which is a pretty bad combination if you're like for your opponents.
It's a lot smarter than what Marjorie Taylor Greene does. That's all I've got to say. Harry, you said something about her. It doesn't help.
Oh, gosh, I forget what I said.
Okay.
She doesn't really have what I would say a lovely voice, and that's coming from me.
Yeah,
that works.
It's a
That
bit
makes
much.
it work better.
Yeah, it's like, okay, sorority girl, you know, wins an election, moves on, because she was originally doing like gun show calendars and waitressing and doing all that stuff. I mean, it's honest work. I don't have a problem with it, but it's not the traditional background for the House of Representatives. So people like to dunk on her, and I have no problem with it. I like it being diverse. There's plenty of room in Congress for one Lauren
Her
Boebert.
congressional district is intensely rural.
It's fine.
I mean, it's very large and very rural.
And it also, sorry.
No, I mean, it's the kind of place where people go to a roadhouse and shoot pool on Saturday nights, and that's where they pick their candidates, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
She's also like she should be, from her life experience, she should be the poster child for the Dems. Like, look at how effective these social programs and the safety net help this woman become self-sustainable, and not only that and successful, but have her own business and then elevated to Congress. Like, but no, because she's the political opponent, she's demonized, and like everything about her is evil. And it's like, but why? These are the things that you are supposedly for, but because she doesn't agree with some of the meat and potatoes of the stuff that you stand for in the modern day, you're just going to vilify her?
she's from the wrong part of Colorado. She's not from Boulder.
Well, unless she says something really loopy in terms of some weird conspiracy theory that I need to call her out on, I don't have an issue with her. Maybe she's said or done something that I should be offended by, but I don't care at the moment.
But that's the great thing here. You don't have to agree or disagree with everything somebody says. You can still appreciate someone. Like, I love Tim Pool.
I'm giving her a soft endorsement.
I love Tim Pool's show. I like his, for the most part, his takes on most things. But the other half of his takes, I'm just kind of like, really, dude? Come on.
No, I'm giving her sort of a conditional endorsement when I say there's plenty of room in Congress for somebody like her, right? Yeah. But I'm assuming that I know what she's like, and I really don't spend a lot of time stalking a congressperson from Colorado. It's not really...
It's unimportant.
It's not really a thing that I need to spend a lot of time thinking about. I have other shit to do, like worrying about my congressman.
It is very interesting, though, how we have developed this notion that somehow or another Congress is some kind of intellectual seat, that it's a pedigreed place. Because I can promise you, throughout the Congresses prior to the television era, we had a lot of just dusty old bumpkins serving in Congress. Because that's who would step up to run from dusty bumpkin districts. And there are dusty bumpkin districts all over this country. Now, the megalopolis has swallowed up a lot of them, and redistricting has made it a very different landscape. But there was, there were plenty of people. Good Lord, Andy Jackson was going to fight duels, and that kind of thing. So, this idea that it was some spectacularly civilized debating society full of lawyers that all trained at Harvard and Yale is a much more modern and a destructive thing.
Yeah, maybe we could do a little bit better than putting a bunch of lawyers in.
I'd rather know the opinion of a few more Lauren Boeberts and a few less Adam Schiffs.
Well, what about Kamala? She was a lawyer and a fine one
What?
at that. No, here she is. Look, there she is looking presidential. She was president, well, basically acting as president briefly, while Biden was having some medical stuff taken care of. Yeah. And I thought this article from CNN, well, not a great article at all. I just thought, let's look at what the people on her side are sort of saying. And even CNN is starting to realize things are not going terribly well inside the White House between Kamala's team and the Biden team. There are multiple reports of a lot of friction going on between the two camps.
Imagine my
anybody. Shot. I mean, do you want to briefly touch on this? Anybody?
I'm not the least bit surprised. I mean, the thing that is, it's not surprising. It's a little weird. Is that apparently her family has more say than actual policy advisors that were hired or having equal say. But then again, we all got check with our confidants, you know. I mean, I don't think that's a particular... I just can't imagine her having any genuine confidants. I can't wrap my brain around that because she's such a creepy sociopath.
Yeah.
That the idea that people would want to take her into their confidence or share theirs with her is peculiar to me.
Well, this article is, I mean, it's CNN, so it's going to be kind of a puff piece. But there are a couple sections here that I pulled out just that I thought were funny in terms of just how puffy they were. Harris is being judged not just by how she's doing in traditional duties of a vice president, you think, said Minion Moore, a longtime Democratic operative. It's a little more subliminal, but it's real. Moore said, what is her playbook in history? Harris has emerged as a quiet force in the administration, Moore said, and she focuses attention on different issues, sometimes just by her very presence in the room.
Really?
Well,
bullshit.
Yes. Yeah. I call, you know, gale force bullshit on that. That is the nicest thing. That's such a nice lie that they've constructed for how things are going.
Yeah.
She's a quiet force.
Well, what the hell do vice presidents generally do anyway?
Well, Pence did a lot. Pence was really, really effective.
Well, yes, some do when they have a lot of policy experience or governance experience, which Pence did. And you had someone in the main seat who did not have that kind of experience. Pence was the insider there. But, I mean, by and large, there's usually some pet projects that the West Wing divvies up. You know, the president will take lead on this, the vice president on that. And also you can use a vice president as a lightning rod to some extent for floating some stuff out there. And if they get shocked, you know, maybe a course changes. You know, course changes.
Well, here's a fine course change. Beta O'Rourke is running for governor of Texas. Would you like to spend a few minutes talking about how fantastic this is, Skep?
Is there magic dirt in Texas?
Oh, just Beta's just, I mean, he's a complete laughing stock down here. Nobody takes him seriously outside of Austin, the northern side of Dallas, and the north and western sides of Houston. He will get 0 votes. He will effectively get 0 votes. I really hope he does run for governor because he'll get the nomination and then he'll just flame out horribly.
0, so he'll get more than Kamala did in the
didn't he already run for? No, he ran against Ted Cruz for Senate.
He ran for the Senate,
and he came perilously close to winning, didn't he?
Yeah, that's Cruz. Texas have a funny relationship with Cruz. We like him when he's not being elected. We like him least when it comes time to vote for him. We spend the rest of the time telling everyone how much we like him, and then he has to squeak by in elections. Everybody knows that he's just the least bit crazy, and he's a brilliant guy, but he's fucked up too. And Texans are aware of that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, I asked you to talk about it.
Yeah,
I mean, you're our Texas correspondent.
That's just my impression of it. You know, if you go down into Austin and you plumb through the folks there at the university, you find people who, you know, agree with his positions and just think he's great. And, you know, the girls all think he's dreamy. And, so do the guys.
So, Serenity, you're saying it's not his real name? Are we talking about Beta?
It's Robert.
Or?
Yeah, it's Robert. Elwin was asking, so I was getting her the real name.
His nickname, which was never known by anyone until it suddenly occurred in a bio that he produced for somebody. All his life since he was a kid, everybody always called him Beta, or Beto, even though nobody can find anyone who ever called him that.
Yeah. And his name is Robert, and Beto. Sorry, Skep, I didn't mean that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's all.
And Beto is actually a nickname for Roberto, which is like the Hispanic version of Robert.
Yeah, except
to give him a little bit of that ethnic flair there, Skep, because he's
trying.
Pasty. Well, he's not pasty in that picture, but you know, he's as lily white as they get. You know,
he looks like he's been to a spray tan.
His name is Robert Francis
O'Rourke.
O'Rourke. Yeah, he's Hispanic.
Well, Beto it is.
He can pass for Irish.
Yeah.
Grief.
Well, he did such the stereotypical Southern thing, the bad type, where he named one of his kids Ulysses.
Oh, I think I read James Joyce, and aren't I clever?
Yeah.
I have a friend whose middle name is Patton.
Walks into a
I respect that more.
Oh, you would you guys would get on just fine.
Who walks into a spray tan booth and says, "I'll have the gas station hot dog look"?
That's not pink, Elwin. That's orange. It just
he's been on the rollers for a little too long. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
He's that one that's on there at 11:30 right before they pull him at midnight.
Yeah. It's just like honey, you can't make yourself Hispanic. Stop it.
And so many politicians are doing this now. It looks gross. Like Trump was not a politician, and he's been orange for a lot longer than he's been in a political player.
It's a pre-existing
condition. Why these? It's so gross. Like with our hyperconnectivity on the internet and everything, we see every moment of these political players' lives. Why you decide to go orange? Or truck stop bathroom brown in the case of Keek yogurt. I mean, I don't get it. Just be happy with your skin. Oh wait, that's racist these days, isn't it? Shit. I'll leave.
I just tell people to work on the content of their character because that's the way it works for me.
God, you're racist.
So, Functional, tell us about the well-meaning Calgary City Council in there. They've declared a state of climate emergency.
So, from the bad side of this might set a dangerous precedent and might spread. However, as it stands right now, Calgary City Council doesn't really have any real power to do anything about this. They can change things. They can attempt to change things within their city, within their jurisdiction. But other than that, Canada's political map, Southern Ontario is very much red. It's reversed up here, so red is liberal. It is very red. BC has a lot of red spread out, but somewhere like Alberta, which is our version of Texas, like Skep said, aside from like Houston, which is Calgary, which is very much liberal, everything outside of it is conservative. Everything outside of it is very independent, industry-oriented, freedom-loving, gun-toting, rootin' tootin', just live life to the fullest kind of salt-of-the-earth people.
Well, they have a
And so,
rodeo
like,
and everything there.
That's
Don't
true.
isn't that where the
they have
Stampede is?
Calgary Stampede. They love their wrestling. And I don't see this becoming a big issue. However, it is interesting that they bring this up because they know it's going to get media attention. I fear that we'll see other cities globally start taking suit. And we've already also seen some other stories about how the next big quote unquote lockdown initiative will be over climate emergencies. So if they can throw around this word emergency, tie it to climate, and lock people down, because why the hell not? It's to save the environment, stay home, blah, blah, then it has the potential to be very dangerous. But on itself, there's not much going on here. Well, this is just a political statement for them to get some attention.
I have a few notes that I wrote here. Now, they want to be carbon neutral by 2050. Now, does this mean that they basically have granted themselves emergency powers that they can use until they're either carbon neutral or 2050, whichever comes first?
Well, as far as... Sorry.
Continue. No, I mean, I was sitting here thinking about it. I mean, given how bad the rest of the world is in their eyes, is carbon neutral really enough? Maybe they should be carbon negative. Maybe that should be the new goal, because once they reach carbon neutral, what do you want to bet that they don't go, oh, well, now we got to turn this thing around. We got to go carbon negative. I mean, why stop at carbon neutral? And then are they going to have, like you were saying, shutdowns where they say, oh, we've got to flatten the CO2 curve, so we're just going to turn off all the power for 1 day a week and tell everybody to just stay home and think about what they did? Well, I don't understand how this is supposed to work.
It's not. It's all rhetoric. So to answer your first question, the Calgary City Council has no powers to denote any sort of state of emergency. That is solely upon the power of the premier of the province, basically our version of a governor. So that's probably not going to happen because they have a very conservative premier. However, our conservatives are kind of wishy-washy. So on its surface, I don't see much happening there. As far as the whole carbon neutral by 2050 thing, those lines have been repeated from US media all the way around the globe to Australia's media. And again, that's why I bring up that there is this push to reinstitute lockdowns over climate, quote unquote, emergencies, to sort of reach this untenable goal. It's not realistic. It's completely untenable, but it's their way of saying, well, we're just going to justify our authoritarian regimes thusly.
Well, it depends on how they define it. I mean, you absolutely can reach that goal if you define it appropriately. We will just buy carbon offset credits from some other place. So because a bunch of trees didn't get chopped down, therefore we're virtuous and we're carbon neutral. As if that means anything. Kind of city.
I was speaking realistically. Okay.
Well, any kind of city is different from other places where humans live because it requires huge amounts of inputs to be brought into the city because of the density. Definitely. There's no way you can put enough solar powers in a city to power it, right? So you can't, use rooftop solar to power a big city. You have to rely on things outside. So they're going to be making deals and doing all sorts of other things. There's things they can do to limit traffic, but transportation's only part of it. You can't hit carbon neutral being a city. You're right. Well, it probably is the premier. But around here in California, they've been declaring racism a public health emergency. Yeah. Because they just enjoy their emergency powers far too much. At a certain point, and I think it's going to be soon, there's going to be a reckoning about what constitutes emergency powers.
It's also rich that it's coming from a city like Calgary, because Alberta is actually one of the global leaders in what they call green energy with solar panels. They have something like almost 2 million solar panels just covering the plains area where there's no farms. Like, they generate quite a bit of solar power, but even that is still not enough to make a dent in the city's power consumption.
You're in Canada. Solar power probably not all that ideal for you guys.
It's actually not that bad. I mean, it's a good offset. It's a good supplement to. We primarily use hydroelectric and nuclear power.
That's what you should be using.
Are
hydro
both
and
very
nukes.
clean. That's why as a Canadian, I'm looking around going, "Are you crazy? We're one of for a first world nation, we are pathetic at polluting the environment."
Oh, hold on. Sudbury, Ontario is not that far from Alberta, is it?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
Oh,
Oh,
quite-
yeah,
quite a bit
Alberta's
away.
in a different province.
It's very close to me, actually, compared to
Alberta is
probably
a
3
different
hours
province.
away.
Yeah,
Sorry, I am just a
It's a
dumb
different-
American. I didn't study
Alberta's
geography.
probably a day and a half.
Hey, I at
away
least
from
know
mine.
what Sudbury, Ontario is.
Alberta borders BC.
Because Sudbury, as I recall, was one of the biggest. Back when acid rain was a big thing, people were worried about. They were one of the biggest polluters on the globe in terms of sulfur compounds because they were doing all this nickel smelting.
Yeah.
So they were putting out like 2% of the world's, sulfur stuff and causing acid rain and problems, 100, 200, 300 miles
Literally
away.
causes H2SO4 aqueous.
Yeah, and once those
Sorry
problems
if your
were
riverbed's,
identified,
made from sedimentary rock.
once those problems were identified, Ontario and the businesses involved got together and they said, "Yeah, let's clean this up." And sure, some tax money went towards helping them develop strategies to clean it up, and it was cleaned up. It's by no means perfectly safe. However, the nickel mining industry has dwindled quite a bit in the last 30 years, but it's not as bad as it once was. Because we as science and technology advances, I don't know if people in the chat or those analogous people out there in the world seem to understand. As we learn things, we can improve on how we typically.
You're
do
funny,
stuff.
Elwin.
She's not wrong. I mean, it's. But yeah, you're right, Prospero. Alberta is right beside BC, and to draw an analogy, it's basically our version of California and Texas. They really are very politically similar, geographically, socially, very similar.
Cities just breed this kind of nonsense, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So what about the
I wanna
state
s-
of Wyoming? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Serenity.
Well, no, I just wanted to say, I want to see a psychological study, like a long-term, like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30-year study. That what is it about cities that makes people just go, chink, chink, and just...
Well, I think an article that's coming up actually sort of touches on that.
Okay,
I've done some research on it.
because I want to
but
know.
That'll
Okay.
take us a while to get through. Serenity.
keep
We
your
can do
powder
that another
dry.
time.
No, I'd be happy for it to be a discussion topic. So Wyoming's starting to get fed up with Liz Cheney. At least a little
just
bit.
now. Sorry.
Republicans in 2 Wyoming counties vote to stop recognizing Cheney as party member. Now, this, of course, doesn't really mean much of anything, but if you understand the way the Republican Party works, local central committees have an amazing amount of power. If you want to get involved in the Republican Party, you start there. Because nobody likes doing, scut work. All the hard work that's done at the local level happens at these committees. And the fact that 2 counties have just said, no, we're tired of this fake rhino. She really needs to keep an eye on stuff because this could go poorly for her. Maybe not right away, but I would think this would be a little bit concerning.
Wasn't someone just recently ejected from the Democratic Party for the same kind of thing?
What?
I thought that this was kind of commonplace. If you didn't, I don't want to say necessarily
There
tote
was
the party
a-
lines all the time, but if you're so aggressively against what your party is kind of for,
There was the Texas senator who switched parties.
Yeah, they
think it was a
switched
senator.
parties. I can't think of anybody ever
wasn't
getting
ejected.
kicked out.
He wasn't ejected, though. Like, as far as I know, this is not that common.
No.
things are
Even
kind of.
Especially for the Republican Party, because the fact that Liz Cheney's pulled as much shit as she has and she's just now getting kicked.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what this is. She's not getting kicked out of anything. What this is it's a bunch of local Republicans saying, please, somebody run against her.
Yeah.
Don't just take it as a given that she's going to be the candidate next time around for the party. We want somebody else to nominate for the party who's not, Liz Cheney. And that's all this is. It's signaling to say, for the love of God, somebody just run against her. Don't let her run unopposed. I mean, that's just my political take on it. Anybody want to tell me I'm dumb?
No, I think
Okay.
No, sounds about right.
All right.
And sorry, it did come back to me. That's actually common practice up here in Canada. Things kind of just mesh together in my head sometimes. It is actually commonplace up here in Canada for somebody to be ejected from the party for not being necessarily.
You may be remembering something else functional. I wanted to just get this in real quickly. Is that the United States House of Representatives did vote to expel a Republican congresswoman from 2 committees over remarks that she made before being elected last November. This Marjorie Taylor Greene had prompted all these QAnon conspiracy theories and endorsed violence against Democrats, according to the Democrats. And she was censured bipartisanly. There were Republicans that voted for her censure and to be stripped of her committee assignments also.
Oh, okay.
That might be what you're remembering.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, I'm definitely
Adam
remembering it
Kinzinger
being
was one of
Canadian
them.
stuff because they've actually ejected people from the party who
Mhm.
continued to run and still won their seat as an independent. So,
all right. Well, let me keep the show moving along here.
Political soup in the old noggin,
There is a poll, Quinnipiac. I never get how do I pronounce this?
Quinnipiac, yeah.
Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac.
Poll that's basically saying, people, it's just yet another data point. People are starting to get kind of fed up with the Biden thing. We got rid of the mean tweets, but unfortunately, good government seems to have gone out the window too. Because, who doesn't mind 6.8% inflation?
Oh, God. It's that high already?
This is following on to, it isn't just going to be the prices. They did some investigation into Virginia politics after Terry McAuliffe lost.
Mm-hmm.
And they were running into people, even a person of color, who they all sympathize with the Democratic agenda. But their social values, as in kind of their home values and their view of education in particular, allies with the Republicans more. So the Democrats are still luring a lot of people and seducing them with the, hey, free shit over here. Mm-hmm. But they're losing them on the social agenda, and particularly the schools, because, McAuliffe's unforced error in regard schools, particularly after a year of kids not being in school and parents having to be the co-educator, let's say. Some of them have realized some of the nonsense that is going on in education, and then the big flap in Loudon. So I think there's a twofold thing going on here, as to what may affect 2022.
Yeah.
The thing.
Go ahead, Serenity, and then I want to ask Skep a question.
Well, yeah. My thing is people have to start. I know there's some people who have their heads so far up their either their butts or they're in sand, whichever one you want to go with, that they're not realizing stuff. But with inflation going the way it is and all that kind of stuff, people have to start realizing the free shit isn't coming. They're not going. This is not. It's not. It's bullshit. Well, even if you look at American history, look at what happened to Detroit, to Buffalo, to so many of these places that were we gotta change the rule. This gets a little bit into the California the thing that comes later, Harry. But it's just we have to change the rules to make it so these people who had, and it's I'm sorry they were dealt a shit hand. I'm sorry, I really am. But my grandfather was I'm going to use him as an anecdote because God rest his soul. But my grandfather was a kid who was born right when the Great Depression happened. His parents couldn't take care of him and his sister, so they put him in an orphanage for 2 years until they could get him out. They got him out. He was not in the right place for a while, but he didn't have a college education, but he became a manager at a plant around here. And he did that without getting a college education. And it's like, he worked his way up. And this is West Virginia. Like, this, like, deck stacked against you in West Virginia. Like, like, so it's one of those things. He busted his butt and got where he was. Like, he was retired by the time I was 5 years old on a good retirement. And it's like, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to do this stuff. Like, stop relying on the government to fix everything.
But I have to play devil's advocate there, Serenity, because it's a different time. There isn't as much manufacturing around for people who, how can I put this, simpler means?
Well, yeah, no, I agree.
To elevate themselves out of that baseline, very low wage poverty to become a manager, or to, the best somebody I think these days could hope for is like become a assistant manager at like a McDonald's, and that's not the same thing as being plant manager.
Well, let me formulate Functional's point. I think what you're saying is that the higher tech requirements of modern jobs decrease social mobility because
for the bottom half.
It pushes a lot of people with limited resources out of the job market because it's harder for them to get the skills necessary to get into it.
Yeah,
any kind of job market where there'd be mobility, because I mean, there's very, very restricted mobility,
and it's just going to get worse. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it just does get worse because you're not allowing people to elevate themselves. And like you were saying, the government is saying, "Oh, well, we'll do it for you." The government is mother, the government is father. We'll give you money, and it never happens.
Well, it's not just the government that's the problem. It's people thinking that they deserve $15 an hour for flipping a fucking hamburger. You're going to make the businesses that would give you the chance to earn the money to get to something better go automated. And once they go automated, they're going to say, fuck you.
Well, we have talked about this before, and I've mentioned, I mean, there's a bunch of things going on. It's a part of a much bigger conversation. You start looking at what a single human being can do with all of sort of the tools that are available. What's the productive capacity of a single person? And that number determines an awful lot of stuff in terms of standard of living and wages and minimum wage and all sorts of other stuff. But, that's a long economic discussion that we can't get into because we want to talk about the next thing that's coming up. But before we do that, I want to ask Skep. So Quinnipiac, I know that you follow the different pollsters, and Rasmussen tends to be really good at measuring things where we have shy voters. They seem to be very good at that sort of thing. How would you rate them as a polling organization? Do you think they're generally pretty good?
Yeah, they're affiliated. Quinnipiac has very, very high standards as far as their methodology. I've actually looked into their methodology. They're affiliated with Marist University. And, they come at it from a, pretty liberal point of view, not classical liberal, but I mean, a really progressive point of view as far as the college is concerned. But the way that they have tracked with other polls that I respect is, with one important exception, they do very well when they cover likely voters. No, I think that's the only one I want to endorse, likely voters. So when they have a poll and they have gone after likely voters, that I have seen a tighter correlation with other polls that I have respect than when they go after, for example, all adults. When they go after all adults, I believe that I see some oversampling in the progressive, particularly with regard to the Quinnipiac poll, and there's another Marist poll that does the same thing, and those two track together. By the way, I suspect it's the same people doing doing the same polling. But anyway,
you may be right.
That's all I know about it.
Let's see. While I've got you talking, there was this fine article where they're starting to talk about this New York Times thing, where the New York Times is suddenly going, I wonder why things suck in the places where Democrats have all this power.
Yeah,
It's like this weird red pill that they're starting to put together for themselves.
Yeah,
Is it kind of the New York Times scratching its head and saying, "Wait a minute, maybe we are the problem"?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're quite there yet.
They're not.
That's why I was asking, because that would be absolutely revolutionary if you could get them just to entertain the idea that there's anything wrong with what has become an increasingly shrill and really unrealistic narrative. The current progressive. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, well, at least with the video I watched, it's that whole thing that they all do in AOC and the Jihad Squad and all them do, which is it's not enough. Like, that's basically what he says in a lot of the places in both the video and the article, is that we're not doing enough. Like, Democrats are actually stopping other things, like low-income housing, from being in this good part of town. So we need to be able to have, like, tell them to fuck off and basically have this stuff. And he's in New York, and you can tell from his background that he's probably in a very nice apartment. And it's like, it's once again that whole thing. It's like part of the Democrats feel that part of people with his mentality feel they need to cut the other half off. So this way they can still keep their good stuff, but the other side needs to suffer. Not necessarily a Republican or a Democrat thing. Like, it's him and the expert he talks to are basically just saying through the entire video, it's not enough. It's not enough. We need to do more. We need to do more. We need to do more. It's like they're almost there. They're almost there.
It's that notion of, we need to keep doing more, and or mean tweets. Mean tweets are holding them back. It's causing them to live in fear and fear for their lives. Mean tweets, man. We got to do something about mean tweets.
No, we're marginalizing 0.0001% of the population, and that's the thing that's causing society to collapse.
Yes.
The sky is falling.
The more oppressed the smaller group of people is, the more important it is, because it's like homeopathy.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
That makes it infinitely powerful when you dilute it as much as possible.
Well, it's like, I still remember, because I saw this before it even got posted for us to talk about on Tumblr. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like he talks about California, and he talks about the fact that, well, everyone in this one district, I think it was Los Angeles County, I think he said it was, wants there to be more affordable housing and and the city rezoned it so this way we could have affordable housing, but it was in this really nice it was a really nice neighborhood, but it was basically either an abandoned lot or it was 2 empty houses or something like that, and they were going to bulldoze them and put not necessarily low income housing, but multiple, like, apartment units in the middle of this neighborhood. And the district basically voted for, fuck you, no. You're not doing that. Get out of our neighborhood. And he honestly sounded confused by it. And it's kind of like, I would have liked it if he would have actually looked at city, or hell, even my state, because my state was fucking Democrat for like 50 or 60 years. Straight. Like, look at places like Detroit, Buffalo, all that kind of stuff. Like, look at places that are gonna have a hell of a time to ever come back.
Yeah, I don't know about living in a place where they have lake effect snow. That just sounds brutal.
True, but it's still, it's that whole thing of, like, he's looking at the stuff now, not looking at the past. And that's this weird disconnect where people refuse to look at the past to try to figure out the future. It's like, they tried this shit in Detroit. It was once a beautiful city. Like, my mom talks about it.
Well, the story of Detroit is long and complicated. There's a lot that we could say about what has happened to Detroit.
Well, true, but it's like, that was still the idea of they're refusing to look at their past. They're looking at the immediate past. And the Republicans are guilty of this shit too, don't get me wrong. But both sides, they look at the immediate past, not the further past. Or they look at the really, really long ago past. They don't look at the in-between, where it's kind of like, the best stuff to learn from is the in-between ones, is the stuff from, like, the late 19th century to about mid 20th century. That's what you need to learn from.
Well, we could talk about all the different ways that the left is wrong about free market stuff, and we have, and we will.
yeah.
I'm sure we will talk about all of these things a bunch of times. The interesting point here is that the people on the left, it's become so bad that even they are starting to notice.
Oh yeah.
Why is it? So,
Maybe
you know, this quote here: "What do Democrats actually do when they have all the power?"
Nothing.
You know, so this guy, video journalist Johnny Harris, teamed up with the Times editorial board writer Benjamin Applebaum.
Sorry.
That's
name.
very to examine why famously liberal states such as New York, California, Washington struggle to advance the progressive policies despite little to no Republican opposition. Yeah, well, I mean, certain things are inherently hard. If you say, well, we want everybody to have cheap and affordable housing, how does that work? I mean, as a free market sort of thing, you can remove barriers and make it easier to build housing. But at the government, you can't just give houses away to everybody. And that seems to be what a lot of these people want.
Wait, why
And
can't you have low cost, high quality houses delivered instantly?
Better, faster, cheaper, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. you should know that in most situations, you can control
I was setting that up for you.
You could do 2 out of 3 of those things. Better, faster, cheaper.
I did it that way.
But, well, we're not saying that people don't have the right to exist, because this is what they'll do. They'll try to turn it around into, well, you don't think I should exist. You just want to hide me. It's like, no, I just don't think that you should get a condominium on the beach for free.
You should earn your keep and not just be handed something.
Yeah, the longer they clap their lips and flap their lips about it, though, the closer you get to, you're right, I don't want you to exist.
Well,
True.
You know, because it's
I was sitting here not having a problem with that.
Yeah, I know. It's like
well, this is their rhetorical. This is their
too
rhetorical
much time on Twitter.
This is their rhetorical technique that they try to use. You know, you're not letting me. You're denying my humanity by not giving me free stuff. So if you look at the weather, right? Why wouldn't you want to live in California? It's awesome. You know, why wouldn't you want to live in, say, San Diego? So you take all of the people who don't have houses, or who don't have a job and they don't have any means, and you just move them all to San Diego, and they show up and go, house please, I'm a human, I deserve a house, it's a human right, give me a house. There aren't jobs for those people, so you're going to give them a free house and then give them free handouts until they're dead? Well, that's the plan. That's what people want.
What are the concomitant responsibilities? With rights go responsibilities.
No, there's just rights. There's no responsibilities. But the market will put housing in places where people can afford to buy it. If you have a growing workforce, like say they want to build another cement factory in Texas, they will hire a certain number of people. Those people want houses. Those houses will get built. You can't just fiddle with the economic knobs and expect good things to happen. You can't just go, oh, well, if you happen to be in San Diego County, you get a free house.
Yeah.
And then expect everything, because you're not looking at the context of everything else. And you notice they're not rezoning Beverly Hills. They're not putting like a halfway house for, pedophiles or something. Well, I mean, actually, they'd probably be right at home in Beverly Hills.
Probably would.
There are no medium security prisons in Bel Air, California.
Yeah.
It's the thing that it's the argument I've gotten in a few people, no one in this group, about like, I understand that you want to live in San Diego or New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. I understand this. I personally don't, because I don't get the appeal of those places, but that's me. I like to visit them and go, fuck you, I'm out. But it's one of those things where it's kind of like, if you want to have the best chance at a leg up, you need to get out of the cities and move to places like cost of living in my state. Like, you can get a good house around here with like an acre of land from anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000.
Well, there was a case, I think we talked about it about a year ago, where a woman moved to Texas, and then she decided she wanted to move back to Oakland. And then when she moved back with her 2 kids, she found she couldn't afford to live in Oakland anymore.
Yep.
So she started squatting in a house that some company had purchased, but nobody had moved into yet. And so this is my house. I have a right to be here. I have a right to live, to not just live and be taken care of, but to live where I want to live.
Yeah, no.
And
why shouldn't she own that house? Why should the person who earned the money to buy that house and had the privilege to buy that house, why should he get to keep it?
What it's kind of also that's kind of
for me. Can somebody explain that to me? Because he doesn't really have. He didn't buy that house. He didn't earn that house. He didn't build that house. He had nothing to do with that house.
Well, I'm screwing up the show's schedule. Does anybody have anything urgently they want to say about this before we move on?
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that, Harry.
Dude, you're fine. You are not the problem. I'm the problem.
Harry is always the problem.
All right. No, I'm glad we're actually talking about stuff. Portland City Council votes to increase police funding, crack down on homeless camping. Yeah, Portland is a great city. Why wouldn't you want to live in Portland except for the fact it rains all the freaking time? Other than the rain, Portland is a fantastic place to live.
And rather the rain,
live up the mouth of the Columbia. That really is one of the best.
But even Portland is starting to finally the fatigue of just the nonstop invasion of people who just want stuff.
You've got starting to get a significant population of people who know somebody who has been directly affected by this. That I suspect that's going on too. Portland's still small enough where the number of people who have had some direct experience with some of the stuff is those people are like seeds out in the neighborhoods, and they tell their story of what it's like. And you get this slow congealing of opinion, and I really do think the worm is beginning to turn on the Antifa and BLM types, and they're going to be recognized for the bunch of violent thugs that they are. I think that's about to happen.
And we actually have a comment from Portland. Devil Fruit Zero. Portland sucks. I live there. I hope we can turn around soon. I doubt very much, though. People are stupid here. Yeah, well, I feel your pain. Living in California, trust me, I know what you're talking about.
When a huge influx of people with very bad mental health issues and homeless people move into your city, and that's what happened in Portland. They're now facing basically an army of homeless and mentally unstable people that from out of state that they were never remotely even able to contend with.
Well, and
even
not homeless people.
This refunding, they're approving 44 million in spending. Even that's not going to make a dent in this.
No, but Antifa and those people running around, we don't like vigilantes, they say, but they don't mind Antifa setting up traffic controls and attacking and assaulting people in their cars who don't do what Antifa tells them to do.
And it's ridiculous because they slashed 15 mil from the police budget, and now they're going to give them back 7.
They should be giving it all back, and they should also take the reins off. Let these guys enforce the damn law.
Yeah, and say, "Hey, police, we're sorry, we're wrong. Get back to work. You have our full support now."
All right, let's see. Well,
so that was very Canadian. Are sorry.
I'm just trying to catch up on time here. U.S. Republicans move to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level.
Thank God. Thank God.
We'll talk about an easy win politically.
What the hell? Who the fuck woke them up on this? Because they've been such just obnoxious assholes about this for so long. Decriminalize all of them.
This is like I agree. This is like the Koch brothers kind of influence is what keeps this sort of thing going. What keeps the federal government so foursquare against trying a Portugal type of solution for America's drug problem.
Prohibition alive,
yeah, exactly. And you have two old billionaires who say a good
one
part,
old billionaire and the other one's there.
Well, okay, but my point is what they're saying is that if you want the middle part of your indirect funding to collapse, hold to your principles by all means, legalize the stuff, but you're going to do it without the coke money. And the Republicans would really be in trouble. They get a lot of money from rich donors, many of whom are crazy people, like the Cokes.
I've always been a little perplexed by this because of one of the Cokes being, in quotes, a libertarian.
Libertarian.
Yeah, because
it's not a libertarian.
Yeah, was he the one that died? I think he was the one that had been the vice presidential candidate to Paul Wells's.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Paul
whatever.
Wells,
well, William Wells. William Wells.
Yeah.
Was it William Wells? Yeah. That. Yeah.
We're thinking of
Charles
Paul
Wellstone.
That's
for a minute, and then I remembered. No, crying at the funeral, wrong person.
Yeah, right.
And if I can put the progressive hat on for a moment, this is a brilliant political strategy from the GOP because you can then start appealing to some of the progressives who hate the Democratic Party to say, hey, look, who is disproportionately affected by the criminalization of marijuana?
Yes.
Black people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hispanic people.
It was something that Trump was talking about.
Yes,
the
exactly.
Sentencing,
and it tends to be a little bit more harsher, but there is, now I'm taking the hat off, but there is a correlation between that issue and gun possession, illegal gun possession. So that ties into when they're sentenced. If you're found with some pot, you're generally going to get not a harsh sentence. But if you're found with some pot and then you have a 9 mil in your back waistband, oh boy, they're going to throw the book at you. And again, that tends to be what prohibition breeds, is that black market. And these people, absolutely. Because it's illegal, if you get robbed, you can't go to the police and go, this guy just robbed me. No, you need to have that weapon on you. All these little factors play into it. But at the end of the day, what it's going to do is it's really going to help that notion of, you know what, we need to do something to make it a little bit more equal.
Well, yeah, I mean, overall,
along these lines, it will be for all, definitely.
My solution.
But I'm just trying to put on that progressive sort of viewpoint, Prospero, and that this will sway some of those people away from the Democrats that they loathe. But
it'll be funny to see whether the progressives can manage to do that, though, because they'll. Some of them would rather choke.
I'm not talking about your Annas and your Chinks. I'm talking more your Jimmy Doors, your
how many of them
progressive, but a little bit more, I don't want to say intellectual, but more open, thinking wise on
maybe some of the more libertarian minded people. There's
a whole lot of people in the middle who are kind of homeless right now, and if the GOP can do strategies like this to bring them into their camp, they could be unstoppable.
Well, you're not wrong that a lot of the gun crime that everybody gets all, they conflate drugs. Those figures with everything have to do with drugs, and they have to do with
almost exclusively something like 88%.
Gangs moving drugs through the cities, and it's all drugs, which is why I would like to see all drugs legalized, because we're putting a lot of people in jail for a whole lot of nonsensical bullshit. We also have death tolls in cities that are appalling. That the gang problem will not go away overnight if you legalize drugs.
No.
But it can change our interdiction program. It's like legalized prostitution, for God's sake. The amount of resources waste chasing prostitutes and johns around is nauseating. Go after sex traffickers. Where is the actual wound? You're mopping up little bits of trickles of blood over here, and there's a gaping wound up here, and that's sex trafficking. There's a gaping wound up here, and it's the gang violence in the cities that are fueled by the black market and drugs. But so far, they've ignored it. Now, maybe this means some people in the Republican Party have begun to sniff out what reality is. Because, granted, law enforcement isn't going to be happy with a lot of it, because you do have short-term, big-time problems when you legalize drugs. Portugal went through a little rough phase. And we'll go through one too. We'll have a lot of people overdosing on because look, I can get this. I hate to say it, but that is kind of Darwin.
Switzerland's rough phase when they did the same thing Portugal did, basically in the central part of Switzerland. They did it for a portion of Switzerland. Their rough phase only lasted about a month and a half, like 6 weeks. And they did have some overdoses and they had some other issues, but it immediately began to, the market is an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. The market came in and began to fix all the things that markets are good at fixing.
Yep.
Quality
testing quickly. Quality testing of drugs to make sure they're not cut with fentanyl. Quality testing. I mean, you're going to get a lot of people who have.
You can sell a guarantee that this is not fentanyl.
Yeah,
you could sell that on the street.
Absolutely, and I mean, just think, Skep, if as a young man coming out of college with your minor in chemistry, boom, they'd legalize drugs, but people were still very concerned about whether people were lacing.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I would have gone into a different line of work.
Oh,
my life would have been completely different if that had happened.
You would have been titrating coke for people.
I for real would. I would have been. My passion was ergotamine chemistry, the amination of lysergic salts, and it's fascinating. It's amazing. It's frustrating. It's hard. It's you get to use interesting reagents, and you get to make the most wonderful substance. I mean, pure, well-constructed lysergic acid diethylamide 25 is
hook a brother up.
It is just outstanding.
But you could
it's just an outstanding way to travel through life.
Well, you could guarantee your tabs.
Yeah, exactly. I can guarantee you my merchandise. That's exactly right.
And being just having chemists though. Man, can you just see STEM blow up with people going into chemistry? Because because
you actually don't really need to know that much chemistry to do the stuff we were doing. I mean,
right. But you're going to have
you can run a Coke lab in Peru.
Yeah,
with just what you learn in high school.
Well, but what I'm saying is, you'll see people take an interest in it. You'll instead of LabCorp drug testing, they're going to be drug testing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be a more positive thing.
Well, I almost started nerding out about sulfurous versus sulfuric acid and thinking nobody wants to know about how that gets turned into sulfuric acid earlier. But I think Serenity wants to comment on this because she just got back. Do you want to go ahead for a second before we move on?
Well, I do want to say that I do agree with Devil Fruit Zero that politicians are only interested in the marijuana taxes. That's understandable, but
well, I think it's also an easy political win.
Yes,
it costs them nothing, and it might get them votes. And if you feel like you're on the losing side of things, you might as well try shit.
Well, the thing is, like, okay, so they tax it. They do that with alcohol, cigarettes, and everything else. I don't care. The money might help some stuff, but at the same time, legalize that shit. That stuff grows like a damn weed in my state. Let's make a bumper crop. Let's do this.
Sure.
Well, it'll grow anywhere. That's what makes it such. Just quickly before we move on, I hate to sound heartless to what Skep and Prospero were saying, but an overdose, that's big deal.
Dude,
compared to,
that's not heartless.
It's a bad thing for the person because sometimes, and a lot of the time with my experience with it, it's just people not knowing. Because it's, black market, it's illegal. People don't talk about it. They don't know a proper dose to take.
Oh yeah, you'd have genuine drug education instead.
What did show almost dramatically overnight success was violent crime related to the black markets almost up and vanished. Now, Portugal had some bad years, but it was unrelated to the drug trade, which their violent crime rates for the drug trade
their street gangs fell apart too. Their street gangs fell apart.
And the money that they saved, in all this police response, they reinvested into their police force to get some of the things that these progressives have been wanting from the police force in counsel training, emotional support training, like how to handle somebody who's tripping balls on LSD, as opposed to let's take Fentanyl Floyd as an example and handcuffing him and throwing him in the back of a cruiser and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're just doing their jobs. I supported those cops no matter what. That's just my personal opinion. But maybe had they had some more empathetic style training, things could have gone a little bit differently. And that's, we see that play out in different cases in Portugal and places like that, where the cops are actually not just thugs with badges and guns, which sometimes is a good thing, but it actually helps to stem that tide of the unhinged, emotionally becoming violent in a public setting.
Anything we could do with any largesse of both money and time to deal with the genuinely horrible social consequences of epidemic bad drugs in the street or overdoses or abuse of drugs would be appealing to me. I would prefer not to be hearing stories about children being executed because their parents screwed somebody in a drug deal. I think we all would prefer if those things went away, and particularly to go back to this, because this is important to me. I've argued with people about this for years, legalizing prostitution to go after sex traffickers. If we legalize prostitution, where we can genuinely make sure that these girls aren't being run by somebody and that they weren't snatched off the streets as some kid who ran away one Saturday because she was mad at mom.
Yeah.
Then we can go after those motherfuckers, because they're slavers is what they are, and they're shitbags, and they're not as bad as pedos, but they're fucking close.
But
and a lot of
many
them
of these people are from the religion of peace. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, then we're just gonna have to wake up and smell that little bit of reality.
Religion of peace and the cartels down south. Yeah.
Yep. So I actually, go ahead, Serenity, but I do have something I need to say.
Well, yeah, no. My thing is this: like, I understand what everybody's saying about Portugal, but Portugal also has a massive, massive problem with fentanyl is now getting pushed through it because they're being used as a port for it to get it into the rest of Europe. The only way Europe's going to stop that is by legalizing drugs, but they're probably not going to.
That's a different problem.
I know, but that's
a
the
very different problem.
Yeah.
Yes, but that will happen if hard drugs get legalized in the United States. Will be used to get around to get to Canada.
Legalization does not mean complete and utter deregulation.
No, I understand that.
It's quite the opposite. There would be
I understand, but it makes it easier.
Well, here we're just talking about pot. We're talking about the thing that you can get a seed from a friend, you can grow a plant in the backyard. It's not the same thing as manufacturing something that can kill people in tiny amounts. I mean, the way you hear fentanyl described, it's practically the same as ricin.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Let me just explain very quickly about why it's that way and what makes it different. The difference between fentanyl and less powerful opiates such as morphine and heroin is that the range from in terms of dosage, the range between therapeutic effect and lethal effect is almost non-existent. They're right next to each other, and you have to achieve this therapeutic level. You have to achieve a certain level, a certain amount of opiate receptors in your nervous system, your cholinergic nervous system, have to be occupied by this chemical for it to have its effect. The problem is that just a little bit more of this chemical, and it essentially shuts down your heart and your lungs. That's the way that this works. That's what makes fentanyl so absolutely deadly. Is it's not only it not only has that characteristic, but that lethal dose and therapeutic level vary widely from person to person.
Mhm.
And so it's an extremely tricky drug to use long term. These fentanyl patches that some of the pain doctors were handing out, boy, you better really know what the fuck you're doing before you hand those out. And if if the patient makes a mistake and puts an extra one on, they're done.
Dead.
Yeah, just make like a little belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very different.
Dead.
It's a very different situation from oxy overdose too, Skep, because like you're saying, with fentanyl, that dose, very, very, very close. With something like oxy, the typical overdose would be a multi-year user taking more because they built up an immunity and taking more until they get to a point where they've taken too much. And even then, it's still not as bad as a fentanyl.
Yeah, it's a little bit like heroin in that regard, the oxy, but it's or somebody stays off it and then they try to go back to taking what they used to.
Well, I stand by my earlier statement, which is likening it to ricin. If you've got a compound that can kill people in very small amounts, you probably want to know where it's coming from, how it's getting in, be able to figure out who's bought it, because otherwise you're just asking for trouble. It's like, oh, I want to get rid of somebody I don't like. Just go rub some fentanyl on them. Then where did it come from? Oh, I don't know.
That was done on a Law and Order Criminal Intent.
Oh, was it?
Lace the inside of a woman's gloves that she wore when she swam because her hands would get cold. They were laced with fentanyl.
Well, there you go. Fentanyl, polonium. There's a number of things that, as libertarian as I try to be, it's like, maybe we need to at least keep track of who's bought this stuff.
Well, a little bit of regulation isn't a bad thing.
But I did want to.
China is asshole when it
China
comes
is
to
asshole. But I did
fentanyl.
want to say there was a lot of talk of prostitution earlier, and I almost fell into the trap of wanting to talk about that because Valaine brought the point up, and I think I'm going to table that, and we can come back to that in a future show.
Okay.
Maybe even one when Valaine's got the night off and she can join us for that one, because I think that's actually a really interesting topic. Anyway, let's see.
You hear that, Valaine? You're not off the hook.
I've already been talking to her. She wants to come on at some point, I think.
Valaine's awesome.
Or she's just being really nice to me and fluffing up my ego. All right, let's see. Ghislaine Maxwell. So we've got more.
Yes, speaking of trafficking.
We've got more trials going on.
I hope, before we get started, I hope to hell this gets as much attention as everything else recently court case wise in the media has. I fear it won't, though.
Well, speaking of getting started, I think you were going to take point on this.
Was I?
Yeah, wasn't it you? Who was it?
Yes.
I think Functional said something in the affirmative, but I think he was trying to do something else at the same time, so I don't think he knew he was taking.
Well, the précis of it is basically high profile trial. They're not going to be putting all this stuff on TV like they did with the Rittenhouse trial. I think it would be. I think a lot of people would find the testimony in this trial to be rather titillating, and the viewer numbers would probably be very good.
The security of the witnesses, and the delicacy of the situation for some of those witnesses it's
extremely delicate.
Those witnesses are going to be testifying against some pretty powerful fucking people.
Yeah.
Well, it's like there's only one picture that's come out of the first day of trial, and it was a hand-drawn one, and that's it.
That's what you're going
the good
to
old
see.
days.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not really in favor of televising court cases.
Same.
I think there should be these things should happen behind closed doors and let the legal system work. Maybe I'm just being a little too optimistic that it does, but I think what we've seen from, say, just even the Rittenhouse trial or the Arbery trial is there is public opinion, there's the media, and they do influence things.
What's like the whole
better or for worse, there is that influence
with the judge from the Rittenhouse thing. Like, you had people calling him a Republican. He's not. He's a registered Democrat. And it's like they were saying he was a white national, and like, and then you had people trying to follow a jury, and it's like, this doesn't need to be televised. Like, maybe back in the days of the OJ trial, you could do that before social media, and it was
that was a shit show then.
Oh yeah. No, I agree, it was a shit show, but like, with the fact that social media wasn't around, you couldn't track people.
Yeah, but man, Lancito became a star because of that.
Which is the other problem. It's like we needed to make, like, judges shouldn't be stars.
Correct.
And all that stuff. And it's like, I don't think they should be televised. I understand the reason why the Rittenhouse one was, but it's still, like, even then I still don't agree with it. It's like, that's still fucking dumb.
Well, generally, sunlight is a good thing when it comes to just about anything involving the government. So I think we kind of have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I totally see why this one needs to be handled maybe a little differently, because we wouldn't want anybody to get a case of Clinton's or accidentally slip and fall and choke themselves with one-ply toilet paper.
Those poor
and again, because a lot of the people giving testimony are people who have already been victimized. We don't want to re-victimize them for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, in this case, it is a very good idea to not televise this. And should the judge allow it, because it's his courtroom, maybe allow the press to have a recap of the day of things within his purview, whatever he wants to allow to come out. But other than that, I don't think it should be anybody's right to either televise or show the jury or the people testifying or anything like that.
Agreed.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Skep, before we move on?
No, let's move on.
Okay, so I know now I'm not hallucinating this time. Defense attorneys rest their case at Arbery death trial. This is all you, Functional. Just take the next 5 minutes or less and tell us about it.
Okay, let me quickly just bring up the article I had. So this is a Yahoo News article, so please take it for what it is, but I want to read some excerpts from the article just to give people a little bit of what is this, because it hasn't gotten nearly as much attention as other court cases, but this is where the jogger meme comes from. It's this case. So it starts off, the racially charged case of 3 men accused of killing black jogger last year in the U.S. state of Georgia has drawn national attention. So first thing, there's not been any evidence of it being racially charged yet. And I don't think there will be. I've been following this case quite closely because it's a lot of interest to me, because it's not as clear cut as Rittenhouse. If we go back, if people have seen the video, it's cell phone footage from one of the men involved, the neighbor of the 2 men who, the McMichaels, that's the younger McMichael in that picture there. He's the one who actually shot Arbery. What we see in the video is this man being in between the 2 trucks. One is parked, and the other guy who's filming is slowly coming up onto the scene. And you see the man in question, Arbery, run up to the first the truck in the front, run around it to the front of the truck, then charges this guy who's holding a shotgun. And once he starts charging, he raises the shotgun. Arbery grabs the shotgun, punches him a few times, and then this guy gets off 3 shots as he's being accosted by this other guy. Now, the interesting thing about this case is that the older McMichael, this guy's father, is a retired sheriff's deputy. He knows the law. He should have known better, as what was released during the final statements from the defense. The judge said, private citizens' warrantless arrest must occur during the perpetration of the offense, or in the case of a felony, during the escape. If the observer fails to make an arrest after the commission of said offense, or during an escape in the case of a felony, his power is extinguished. So that makes sense. So were they in the wrong? That seems to be the case. They were in the wrong to basically try to detain, quote unquote, kidnap somebody. However, the police showed up 2 minutes later. So that's why it's such a murky case right now. However, there is a case to be made that the younger McMichael, pictured here, does have a bit of a self-defense claim, as Arbery initiated the physical altercation.
Well, didn't he try to grab the gun?
That's basically
That's
all I
the
have.
claim.
The defense attorney, two claims were of the citizen's arrest and then self-defense. What do you want to?
Well, the super short cliff notes is there were thefts taking place in the neighborhood. I believe there was construction going on.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this guy who they thought was being sketchy, they accused him. He said, "I'm just jogging." Man's got a right to jog, doesn't he? And so they did the whole citizen's arrest thing, and then used a lot more force, essentially killing this guy when he didn't decide to go along with the whole process.
Mhm.
And now we're here dealing with the technical issues involving this case.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're saying that under the law in that area, a citizen's arrest is possible, but they failed to do something to make it sort of stick. What was that part that they missed?
They failed to be witness or in the presence of the crime being committed.
So they didn't have firsthand knowledge of this guy actually committing a crime, but they tried to put him under citizen's arrest when he tried to leave.
Well, basically, that's the argument, is that they were trying to detain him so the police could show up because, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a predominantly white neighborhood. And to have somebody looking the way that Arbery does, and he dresses and presents, talks like a thug, it was a little suspicious. So because there were strings of thefts, one including a firearm, they thought that this guy was good for it. They chased him down. They tried to detain him, and that's when the altercation happened.
Yeah, well, there's a thin line between detaining somebody and kidnapping them in the law. There's only very few circumstances where you can impede somebody's motion.
And taken from the actual law as it is written, it says, if the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, a private person may arrest him upon reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion. Felony narrow, and then something the judge said where he narrows it to felonies, but doesn't discount misdemeanors. It's case by case basis. A guy can be arrested by citizen's arrest, but cannot chase in the effect of a misdemeanor. So if it's a felony and there's reasonability in that person's mind, yes, they can chase. However, in the case of a misdemeanor, you cannot chase according to Georgia law, as this judge presents it. So it was an interesting day in the court today when the defense attorneys, or was it yesterday, when the defense attorneys actually gave their final statements and rested their case. They only gave something like 7 witnesses. So they might be feeling a little bit confident that they won't get murder 1, which I think they're desperately trying to go to at least, or at most, a manslaughter charge. Just still not great, but for the prosecution, and oh my god, in watching this on Court TV, CPAC, I don't know, whatever the channel was, it's brilliant. My admiration for both law teams, both the prosecution and the defense, is very high because they were very professional. There wasn't any shenanigans, as you saw with some other trials that have been going on lately. And they were both very well put together, well spoken, and were making very good arguments towards one another's cases. It was a pleasure to watch, even though it's something of a tough and murky, as somebody who's not in the legal system, never mind the Georgia legal system, to watch.
Okay. Well, yeah, it sounds a little bit more complicated, but definitely very different from the Rittenhouse case by a long way. There's a lot more nuance there. Does anybody want to comment on what Functional presented before we move on to the next thing?
Other than hearing the word citizen's arrest in my head out of the Andy Griffith show. No,
to go off a little script a little bit. Yes, this doesn't matter in court. However, Ahmaud Arbery brought a loaded gun to his high school, and just to threaten other students with it, He's been caught on camera assaulting a police officer. He's been twice convicted of theft, robbery, something like that. So he's not a good dude.
And they knew from it was a friend of theirs that was building the house apparently, and this guy fit the description of somebody who'd come into the house. And
but the problem
all those things,
with the friends,
just call the goddamn cops. This guy, the father. Well, I know they did.
But Prospero, the problem is the guy who owned the house, he didn't report any of the thefts.
Yeah,
because he was worried about his insurance premiums going up.
Absolutely.
So that comes back around and circles the McMichaels and bites them in the ass for this.
It does. I mean, the elder McMichael is the one
police officer. He should know.
Yeah, is the one whose behavior is rash here. The son's behavior may be rash because he's going along for a ride with daddy, so to speak. They could have tailed him.
Yeah, just follow him.
They did not have to confront
the cops
him.
were literally 2.5 minutes behind them, Prospero.
Yeah.
They could have just kept to their cars and following them.
And there is that notion. Escalation is a factor in determining these things, or it should have been mentioned by the prosecution. I would have thought, since they certainly tried to use it in Kenosha.
Well, is it just me, or does he look a lot like the Wojak meme?
A little bit.
I mean,
the thing though, Prospero, I think if either side mentioned the escalation, it wouldn't work very well. It wouldn't work very well in either. It would be to both sides' detriment because both sides escalated. McMichael's got a little bit more hair though.
It is, but getting out of the vehicle.
That's disturbing.
It is very.
His dad should have known better.
Yeah, his dad. I do think
cop.
Just do a left-right flip.
I do think that the son was led down a garden path by his father.
Mm-hmm. And now, because he was the shooter,
he faces the greatest jeopardy. Yes.
At the highest standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want a piece of this, Skep?
No, that's okay. I think these guys are sketchy as hell. I think that they had. I think they ended up committing a crime against this guy Arbery.
Yeah, I think they wrote a check they can't cover.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I think they need to go to jail.
Well, yeah. The question is just how much jail. Yeah,
I think they're at least manslaughter, and they might even be third-degree murder.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think I agree
Third
with you.
Is also all known as accidental homicide, or
they did not set out that morning to kill that guy.
Not involuntary.
Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about depraved indifference. I'm talking
depraved indifference. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
I was fishing for the word. Sorry.
Speaking of depravity, ACLU says FBI raid on Project Veritas founder O'Keefe's home, threat to press freedom. You think?
No shit. I mean, honest to God, though, this is the blind squirrel finding a nut, isn't it? With the ACLU.
Well, this is like the ACLU.
They give it and they take it away in the same fucking week.
Well, the ACLU was, for the longest time, pretty decent. They would say, oh, the Nazis want to march in Skokie? Fine. We protect the Constitution. We don't care about this other stuff. But their balls have retreated so far up into their, their chest cavity at this point that I was surprised that they dropped temporarily long enough for them to actually realize, we are in charge of civil, for civil liberties. Maybe freedom of the press is actually a big deal.
Think of them as a rubber attached to a rubber band. They dropped and then they shot right straight back into their throat with their statement on Kenosha. So, it's the ACLU, like most of the left, is held together by the thin wire of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, well, there's a technical point here, which I think is the crux of it. It's not that the law enforcement can't go after people who commit crimes, including lawyers. It's that because of the types of materials that lawyers deal with, now whether you think Project Veritas are lawyers or journalists, either or both of those things is not the point. It's hard to define what like a real journalist is, right? And what real lawyers are sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But they normally what they would do is, like they're saying, the group urged the court to appoint a special master to ensure that law enforcement officers review only those materials that were lawfully seized and that are directly relevant to legitimate criminal investigation. Now, I don't know which of you knows the most about special master. Maybe it's me. God, I hope it's not me. Is this a Prospero thing or a Skep thing?
No.
Which of you knows about this?
Well, I neither one of us have been to law school.
Okay.
Special master is just, somebody that the court is going to say, this is a responsible citizen, usually an attorney.
Or retired judge.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody who can be counted on not to fuck this up. And we're going to put them in charge of
babysitting
and give them certain powers of subpoena and powers to discover things, including up to and including suppression of the First and Fourth Amendments to the Constitution to a certain extent, and he can just go to town and learn what he needs to learn and enforce what he needs to enforce according to the document that creates the special master position.
How did they get this warrant for O'Keefe?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
That is
Because
I don't have the answer.
I could not find it out.
I am smelling.
I was looking to find the, because that's what that is something they teach young lawyers to do, is to trace crimes and trace investigations, all the way back up, what led to what, and the
Cooey Bono,
biggest
baby.
thing here, who benefits as a result of this going forward. And there are a lot of people actually who benefit because Veritas has become very inconvenient to some very important, powerful people who have a real interest in suppressing what these guys are doing. It'd be interesting to see where that came from. I would seriously love to know where the warrant came from.
Yeah.
Who issued
which
the warrant
judge
and
signed that off?
what was the pretext? That's
what was the
I wanna see
presentation before the court to get that warrant?
right, to
Because
get the warrant.
I smell the soft, slightly alcohol-laced aroma of the rotting fruit of poisonous tree, because I think this was
if it has the judge's signature on it, it's you don't have a poison tree.
No, I know I don't have a poison tree.
Because the tree becomes sweet.
But where it was obtained,
signature of the judge,
where it was obtained, what jurisdiction it was obtained in, and what was the statement before the court to obtain the warrant.
Right. That's what I wanted to know.
Because what I smell is the same fucking shit that went on before the FISA court, where you had somebody prance in, stand in front of a judge, and lie their ass off.
That guy did too. To get the Steele dossier.
Oh yeah, they lied, and I mean, people belong in jail merely for that, because it used to be that the entire judgy branch of the judiciary, the actual sitting judges, lost their shit when they found out that they were lied to and they signed off on a warrant, because that puts their name at center court for where this stuff all begins.
Yeah.
And nobody most people don't like being lied to, or didn't used to. I don't know. Nowadays, it's hard to tell. But I just would dearly love to know what the jurisdiction was that they went to, and who the judge was, what the past. I do want to know a little bit about the judge. Yeah. Whether it's just some schmo But I'd like to see what the filings were.
Yeah, we're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from that argument, you can kind of ascertain was the person, the judge who signed off on the warrant, if they were a yes man for,
if they have a history of being,
or if they were just, like you said,
or if
lied
it's
to.
or if it's clearinghouse. There are some courts that are clearinghouses. The Southern District of New York has turned into a clearinghouse for going after any conservative.
Yeah.
Well, I still want to know about the special master, because if you're going to go after attorneys and you're going to go after the press, it should not be an all-you-can-eat buffet for all the things you'd like to grab from them. You have some small pretext, and then you just gather all the things you can possibly find in their office with no limits. The point of the special master is they're supposed to manage what gets taken from the press or the lawyers and given to the federal prosecutors or the judiciary.
What falls under the purview of evidence,
and what relates to
in the warrant, what the actual warrant was looking for, because you're not supposed to just be able to go through. And I mean, obviously, since they want a special master appointed.
Well, the ACLU says they should have a special master, and they're actually right.
They are, because what they're doing, this is a fucking fishing expedition.
Well, they shouldn't have to say this. This is so freakishly obvious. It's like, yes, you should have a special master for this.
Well, there have been a lot of fishing expedition warrants granted lately. Yes, in the last 5 years or a little bit longer. Let's say
there wouldn't be as many of them being granted or being sought if they realized they weren't going to be able to use this as an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Look at the raid on Roger Stone.
Look at the raid on Roger Stone, exactly.
So the only thing I was able to find was that it's in connection with a grand jury, non-public disclosure with that grand jury for the warrants. That's all I can find.
Yeah, I think
non-public disclosure.
We ran into the same thing.
I do think, from what I've been able to find, though, it was most likely New York itself that did it. I just can't find the district and the judge.
Well, that's how you get ahead in New York and New York State, is you run these types of things. And it's not that hard to put together a grand jury there if you want to make somebody's life difficult.
In the Southern, and especially conservatives. And we all know where Veritas comes down.
That Southern District is a hellhole.
Southern District is absolutely a clearinghouse for hunting conservatives. I mean, just go ask anybody who got dragnetted in that fake bullshit.
Oh yeah.
With the ask Papadopoulos, ask any of these people. It's all that stuff got churned through the fucking Southern District of New York.
Hey, that's going to be your next governor of New York, is the AG who's behind.
Oh yeah. Well, they've been long overdue to have a mob boss. The last time they had somebody approaching a mob boss really was Fiorello LaGuardia.
Well, from the AG to the OG, read the emails Elon Musk sent Tesla employees about music on the job and following directions. I'm going to go ahead
this story. It is wonderful.
I'm going to go ahead and actually skip the two things on the plan that follow this for tonight. We'll come back to them later, just in the interest of time. But I do want to talk about this because I rather like this story.
I did too.
So Elon is quoted as saying, "I very much support music in the factory as well as any little touches that make work more enjoyable." Yeah. Now, he does say that, you could have one earbud in because you need to be listening for safety things and stuff. But don't be a dick about things like that. But this was his message to the people out on the floor doing all the work, and that's fine. But he also sent an email to managers.
It's awesome.
And he gave very explicit instructions. He said, email me back to say if an email is sent from me with explicit directions, there are only 3 actions allowed by managers. 1, email me back to explain why what I have said was incorrect. Sometimes I'm just plain wrong. 2, request further clarification if what I said was ambiguous. 3, execute the directions. If none of the above are done, that manager will be asked to resign immediately. Thank you, Elon.
Good.
It's perfectly clear cut. Cree and I actually had an argument today because he would have changed the order of them, because I was complimenting Musk on declaring himself to have feet of clay and it first, and then saying or clarification. And Cree's like, yeah, but the clarification, you might think somebody's wrong, but with clarification, it gets straightened out. I was like, all right, dude, whatever. I still like the fact that he admits, I am a human. I make errors first, because that is a technique as a manager of putting people at ease.
Yeah.
And making them feel like you're genuinely accessible to being told that you're wrong, because he could be making a fundamental error. And I just love it. You have 4 options, kids. Choose wisely. He didn't have to say, because basically the 4th is not numbered. It doesn't need to be. These are your choices. Otherwise, bye-bye.
Well, to me, this is good management. You don't sweat the small stuff. Now, there are people who will, like, for instance, on the music thing, they'll make a big deal out of something like this. And then at the end, they'll capitulate to sort of say, oh, well, I gave in on this one thing. And it's all just theater. It doesn't matter to them at all. Elon doesn't have the time or energy to play those kinds of stupid games with people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good. That means that he's focused on things. If you're dealing with a hostile union that you're negotiating with, you have to play stupid games like getting rid of water coolers and then putting them back, and changing the location of the break room, and you just do stuff to just to have things that you don't mind giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's refreshing to me to see that he's not engaging in that kind of crap.
Yeah, because it's inconsequential.
Yes.
He's recognized that it's inconsequential. I liked what he said. He said, I'm fine with ambient music if reasonable agreement can be reached by the people in the area.
Yes, the boss said that I can listen to the music at a reasonable volume while I collate.
Yeah.
Office Space, anyone? Jesus.
Yeah.
I know I don't do impressions very well.
Yeah, but it's that it's like, sure, whatever makes you happier when you're working for me. It's no skin off his nose.
Yeah. It isn't. All right. Let's see.
But that second one, it is skin off his nose if people don't do what he tells them to do.
Well, so I mean, you can't have managers. The managers, he's just making it very clear.
Yeah.
Well, a guy like Elon has all these irons and all these different fires, right? And you get into this thing called span of control. So for him to do his job, he has to organize, deputize, and supervise. Mm-hmm. And he has to decide which of those things he does on a given day for a given topic. And the more things that he can declutter his mind of, that he can delegate and know that it'll be handled competently, the better.
Yep.
This is how he's able to have his fingers in so many different companies and still have time to make flamethrowers and go smoke pot with Joe Rogan.
And
he does
Bernie
this.
Sanders.
Yeah, he does this stuff because he's actually learned how to be an effective manager.
Mm-hmm.
So even when he says dumb things like let's have suborbital flights as a means of you going from LA to New York, that's a silly thing to say. It's just patently stupid. And there's no amount of mass production that's going to make that make sense because energy is a thing.
Yes.
He occasionally says things that are just dumb, and the Hyperloop is insanely stupid.
Yeah.
Let's build a thing in California that if it starts to decompress, say if there's an earthquake or terrorism, everybody dies.
Yeah,
no, let's not build that.
Jello arrives at work instead of the person that left. Yay!
But in terms of stuff like this, at least he has the cojones to actually kind of dream big.
Yeah.
And push people really hard, because he's accomplished some pretty amazing things in terms of, I did not think he was going to be nearly as successful with his first stage rocket boosters landing and becoming reusable. He's exceeded my expectations by a lot.
Yep. I think he's exceeded his own.
It's a hard problem.
Possibly. Yeah, it is. It's making those things land properly.
And it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. Happy workforce is a productive workforce.
And a happy boss. Elon strikes me.
Happy.
Well, I mean, Elon strikes me as a pretty happy guy.
Yeah.
Of
course, he did break up with his girlfriend Grimes recently, but that's okay.
Well, bad things happen.
Bad things happen. Speaking of bad things, what an easy segue that is. Some idiots decided to create trouble for everybody else, and what they did was there's a construction site. I think it's in Utah. Yes, Utah for Facebook.
They're building
and in this construction site, some idiot wrote a message on the door of one of the porta potties saying, kill N-word day 11/29. Now, first of all, it would be kill an N-word.
Yes.
Saying. But aside from the crimes against grammar, this is just a fucking stupid thing to do. I don't understand why people do stuff like this. They just like to see people get a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so the construction company sent everybody home.
Good.
And put up this. So 1,300 workers went home, and there's a $50,000 reward offered to find the culprit. This is kind of the modern equivalent of putting shit on the railroad tracks, seeing it would be funny if the train derails.
Yeah, hoo ha ha ha.
I mean, people. Hey, this is just ancient version of trolling, like what we now do on social media. People write this shit. Now, if it is a genuine etching of somebody who is effectively truly racist, that's a shame. But let's not forget that there have been a spat of controversies over certain people writing that stuff who really don't believe that stuff.
Well, isn't this like pulling the fire alarm at school or phoning in a bomb threat because you don't want to take your final? It's that level of bullshit. And by giving into this, I mean, it's like, okay, congratulations. There's either an edgelord or some idiot amongst us.
Yes.
Why does that mean that 1,300 people have to go home from work?
Well, because everybody's going to overreact. And I hate to say this, and I may not be right, but look at the number of fake hate crimes that took place, particularly after Trump was elected.
But don't signal boost it then.
I mean, just
but it gets clicks, Harry. That's the problem.
They're
this
just
shit is getting clicks no matter what.
No, it's not. It's not the clicks. It's the company that sent the workers home. The people building this facility. They sent 1,300 workers home from a construction site. If they just didn't do that, and they said, "Look, some idiot did this thing. Cut it out. If we catch you, you are fired. You are fired." And you can even put the reward out.
There may be legal consequences.
But don't send everybody home. Just like if you thought there was a bomb threat, but it wasn't credible, you would just keep having the final exams.
Streisand effect.
That's the climate we live in now. 20 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have sent everybody home. They would have done exactly what
there would have been a memo.
If we find out who did this,
the construction company is just virtue signaling. They're trying to show how much they care.
Well, they're working for Facebook. Are you surprised?
Just everybody keep doing your damn job. I'm sorry.
The narrative outside of I wanted to give you the Blaze article because it was just these are the facts. Because everything else I found out about found dealing with this. Obviously, the usual culprits come into play: MSNBC, CNN, blah blah blah. It was all hyper racialized, and this stuff. If this happened to a white person, oh my God, there'd be. And you know what? Before the show, I brought up a dozen articles on my other screen right now. Anti-white graffiti found in Palo Alto. Graffiti with racial epithets directed at whites found in another bathroom. Calgary. Oakville, which is just outside Toronto here, West Shore, like just on and on and on. And for them to say this stuff, it's like you're fucking lying. You are just, pardon my French, these outlets, they're just stoking those fires of hate and divisiveness and all this, because all it boils down to, Harry, is clicks. Clicks get them money. It's infuriating. I know I'm preaching to the choir at this point, but it's infuriating. Either way this turns out, if it was somebody who was actually, I don't think anybody here would have any problem with, no, throw the book at him. Give him no.
Well, I mean, thing one is
Fine
if
him,
I catch
kick
them
him out of his job.
if I catch them doing this, I'm going to lock them in the porta potty. I'm going to knock it over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just
that
for
too.
starters. For starters, but the rest of you people, stop being butter soft bitches and get back to work. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's just the way I feel about this stuff.
And the thing is, there just have been so many hoax, fake hate crimes
that we're given so much attention.
Well, they are, and I mean and they keep falling in it, and it gets the signal boost.
Yeah.
And then it gives the chance for all the progressives to rush in and provide thoughts and prayers and aid and comfort for all the people who are rocked to their core by something scrawled inside a fucking shitter.
Yeah.
Don't forget that noose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bubba.
All right. Let's see. So let's just end on this. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Serenity or Skep, about this?
Nah.
Okay. All right.
I know what's coming up. So,
well, I mean, which one did you
one of
want? I was going to
two.
do the English taxi driver.
Well, they were both good. That's why I'm
awesome.
laughing. I'm like,
Well,
whichever
we
one
might
you
be able
pick,
to have
you'll
time for
laugh.
both of these. Okay, hero taxi driver locked suicide bomber in cab and jumped out after explosion. So essentially,
Chad.
this English taxi driver decided that this person looked a little sketchy. Thought he may have seen something that this person was wearing. It was a bomb, and instead of actually taking this person to a remembrance ceremony where there are going to be a bunch of vets, or the hospital, the women's hospital that the guy wanted to go to, he just at the last minute, locked this guy in the car, and he blew himself up inside the car. And it looks like the bomb may have malfunctioned, because if you look at the video for this thing, you can see the car show up. It's a little small. Sorry about that. So here's the car showing up, and
whoa.
Yeah.
Blew that sunroof right off.
I love the one person in the high res vest just being like, "Hey, what the? Oh shit!" You can see them kind of come to the oh shit realization.
So I think this guy, the taxi driver, I mean, yeah, good on you for locking that guy in, but he's lucky to be alive. If the bomb,
no kidding.
Essentially the secondary explosive didn't go off.
Thank
the
God.
primary explosive went off, which was more than enough to kill the guy who decided to wrap it around his body.
Haha.
But yeah, I know.
Religion of peace.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. But yeah, this is the thing. It's like those people on the flight that found out during 9/11 who figured out what was going on and tried to take the plane back. The plane ended up crashing. But yeah, you guys were a bunch of heroes. This guy's a hero
This
too.
chap needs to get knighted.
Yes,
and it needs to be the Order of the Chad. It just
Order of the Chad. What were you going to say, Serenity?
Like I was about to say, is this a black cab driver or is this a regular cabbie? Because it looks like a black van. That's reason, unless they have really, really new black cabs.
No, they have those. They have those. They kind of look like square hatchbacks.
Oh, okay. So he is a black.
That's their new fleet. It is a black cab. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes me more Chad because the black cab drivers are awesome. They're a little bit of assholes, but they're
that Vauxhall is totaled.
Yeah.
And Prospero, it's British, so it'd be Order of the Chaddington.
The Chaddington, yes.
The Chaddington.
Good job.
Baron Chad of
This
wherever the hell he's from.
awesome.
Baron Chad of
Chatty McChadface. Yes. I think Angry Cops should give this guy the POB.
Yes,
good job.
Absolutely.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys want to do the last one?
Go for it.
Sounds like it. Okay. Well, this nutcase keeps going to the zoo and taunting the lions.
Oh shit, that's just animal cruelty.
Especially
a
looking at
woman
that
who was charged
sausage
2
in a
years
dress.
ago with trespassing near the lion exhibit and taunting the animals at the Bronx Zoo is wanted again for doing the same thing this past week, New York City police said. Police asked for the public's health locating stupid name 32, who's accused of trespassing in a fenced-in area near the lion exhibit. Yeah, this seems like a pretty terrible idea.
I see a certain community of interest between the woman and the lion.
Mm-hmm.
The woman wants to be in the enclosure with the lion. The lion enjoys tasty snacks.
Yeah.
I see a way they can help each other.
Well, she dressed for the occasion.
She looks like a fruit roll up.
Yeah.
Well, I like her animal print
look at
stole.
that. She's not going to be missed. Look at that. That's a broken person. That's lion food on the hoof right there to me.
I don't know, man. It depends. What's his cholesterol? The lion's.
That's a good point.
There's some other woman in the lion den. Because that woman doesn't look anything like the other women. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to stereotype, but yeah.
There's something going on
The
there.
lion is like, what the hell is up with that fuck knuckle doing this thing? In my opinion, it's like,
The lion has a look on its face similar to the Leatherface guy when he looks over and says, "Can you believe this?"
yeah. Yeah, it's just.
Can you believe this woman is in my enclosure? I eat people like you.
What?
Do you not know our history?
I guess that's shorthand for lion. Look at this shit, will you?
Yeah, exactly.
The stuff I have to put up with.
We should have just let nature take its course in some cases.
I love it. I love a good Darwin Award. I really do. I probably more than I should.
Well, she's not an award winner yet. She's a nominee.
She's an aspiring Darwin Award
winner.
She's
Look,
competing heartily.
I'm still mad about that polar bear that was killed years ago after that stupid 13 or 14-year-old went over the fence into the enclosure. And the polar bear killed it. And it is a good name because it was obviously not particularly sentient. And they went and shot the polar bear. And it's like, well, son of a bitch. I mean, the polar bear did what comes naturally to polar bears because they're giant wolverines. They're not cuddly little things.
People like to see humans dominate animals. There is tape, and it's really worth watching this tape. It's on YouTube. And it's a case of they've got this deputy, and he's got his little handgun out, and they're going to find the alligator in this pond.
Yeah.
The alligator jumps up, grabs the deputy by the neck, swims to the bottom of the pond, and kills him on tape right there. It is really something to watch. And you're just kind of, these people are so obnoxious and so hateful toward the alligator, and they're so sure of themselves until this alligator just comes up and says, "No, you're in my pond. This is how we do it here.
This is my house."
Yeah.
It's horrifying because this guy really was, he really was killed. And you get to see it happen. But boy,
poor Barney. He had trouble once he left Andy's side. He wasn't too successful there.
Never got that gun loaded.
Got my one bullet there. What were you going to say, Functional?
To juxtapose that, Skep, to maybe leave us off on a lighter note, I saw an interesting video on the Dodo this week. Animal videos, awesome, cute stuff. A 9-year-old boy fell into a gorilla enclosure in some South American zoo, and the senior gorilla there actually kind of like went over, and he fell. He went unconscious. The elder gorilla walked over, kind of like noticed that something was wrong, and then pushed away the other gorillas and took them all away as onlookers saw what was happening, jumped down to rescue the boy. Zookeeper came in, and I was just like, oh wow, that's something you won't see being pushed as much as like a Harambe story or the alligator story.
Was he protecting the boy, or was he saying my snack later?
No, protecting the boy. Well, definitely protecting the boy.
At least it wasn't a chimp.
Actually,
they're
did
dicks.
Did anybody check the social media history of that senior gorilla to know if he follows the Dicks Up for Harambe?
He could have.
Not again! Never again!
Never again! Never again! Yeah.
You miss your Harambe?
Harambe saved those gorillas and that boy.
I think Serenity's just ashamed to know us at this point.
Well, I'm ashamed to know me too, but that's.
Yeah, I know. So we have reached the 2-hour and 10-minute mark, so we need to go. Is there anything quick anybody wants to bring up before we say goodnight?
No.
I have a bit of wisdom from, of all people, Goldie Hawn. She's actually a very smart lady. And she said something smart once. She said, the only thing that will make you happy is being happy with who you are and not who people think you are. Surprisingly insightful for the golden one.
She was great in playing a dingbat and Laugh-In.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing.
All right. Well, thank you. Sorry, Functional, you going to say something?
Oh, he's cutting me off. Yes, just a quick quote. Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty, he's free at last!
Exactly.
He's going to be on Tucker on Monday. I'm excited.
Wow.
That's going to be his first media appearance. I think good on him too, because it gives him after what happened and visually seeing what happened, give him the weekend to sort of decompress and just sort of take a breath.
Yeah. I think it was really good that the trial was televised. I think the transparency was, given the nature of the case, I think it was really important.
Yeah.
So I'm generally satisfied. And all these people who were mad at the judge because of some of his quirks or his eccentricities, I thought the judge came off as being pretty damn human.
The ships in the harbor get in.
Well, I mean, playing Jeopardy
nice
with the alternate jurors and stuff. I don't have a problem with that. People need to unclench. Seriously.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that, the zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Night.
everybody.